Hello, I'm Mike DeGroat. This is Sober When I Wrote This, an audio exclusive. I'm joined by my co-host, Tristan Davis. What's up, my man?
What's going on, man?
Here we are, almost Christmas.
Almost Christmas. What? I don't even know how many days. I don't have the counter like everybody else.
The countdown begins. What are we going to talk about today?
Well, we're going to talk about this time of year, being Christmas time. It can either be a joyous time or, as you're familiar with, can be a pretty painful time for some. And so I want to talk about that a little bit. You have a story about someone that you were, I guess, friends with recently. So I want to talk about that a little bit when we get there. But I want to start with you put out a poll on your Instagram just to see where people stand as far as their mindset goes, or if they've struggled with suicidal thoughts or ideations. I'm curious what the results have been of that so far.
Yeah, I was curious to see kind of just from my followers who has been impacted by suicide, either directly or indirectly. And so the question was, have you been directly or indirectly affected by suicide ideations, or an unsuccessful attempt? And what's really interesting is, as far as the responses have been concerned, 80% of those who have replied have been impacted by suicide of some sort.
Wow. That's a large percentage.
Yeah, and to kind of put that into perspective, I would say that the majority of my followers are not like on a global scale.
Yeah.
These are people that I grew up with, went to high school with, college, friends, family, coworkers. So in my small space, those who have responded, 80% are impacted or affected by suicide in some way. And I think what really drives my curiosity even further is, to what degree is this impacting us well beyond the container that I live in? And why are we not talking about it more?
Yeah. No, it's crazy that you say that with it being in your small circle. It makes me wonder how many of us as individuals, like, is it 80% in our circles too? And you always hear, people will say, oh, not that person, or someone will, take their life and be like, I would have never saw it coming. But seeing that poll and hearing you say that that's just primarily your circle with people that you grew up with, people that you know, it makes you wonder if, or not if, but how many people that are in each, like our own individual circles that struggle with that we're just completely unaware of.
Well, even if we adjust for those who don't want to share for whatever reason, 80% is still a very significant number of people that have some sort of relationship to suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And we're only as sick as our secrets, right?
Right.
So, what I've wanted to do with Sober When I Wrote This is draw a light on those who have struggled or been affected by this, and try to understand, what is it that drives someone to that point, and then what is it that helps them overcome that. One of the things that has been on my heart this week is I just received a phone call that a friend took his own life here in Lubbock. And he is someone that I never thought would have done something like this. But I did talk to other people who were close to him, and they saw, I wouldn't necessarily say the writing on the wall, but there were these indicators that he was suffering. And so maybe I wasn't as close to him as I thought I was. But to the degree that I was close to him, we just got each other. We talked about deep, dark things that we have been through, and it was my understanding that he had overcome those.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just not the case. And so here we are at Christmas time, and his family, his wife, his kids, they have to deal with the loss of a father. And they'll remember that for the rest of their life. Every single time Christmas comes around, they'll remember that their dad died.
Yeah.
My heart breaks for them.
Yeah, man. And that's that's something that is hard to understand. I personally haven't experienced that, unlike you and some of the people we've talked with, but I can only imagine how painful that is, and especially for the family members, like you said.
Well, how do you even articulate that when you're young, when you're the child, when you're the wife, the mother? How do you make sense of that? And I don't have the answers, and this is literally why I started this podcast. One of my favorite quotes by Nietzsche says, "He who has a why can bear any how."
Hmm.
And that's what we're trying to get down to we're trying to get down to the bottom of why this is happening. And I think that we're starting to scratch the surface. There's a lot of similarities between people's stories, mainly hopelessness.
Hmm.
Hopelessness seems to be the culprit. And, I would offer that the antidote to that is hope
Yeah.
in the form of encouragement, truth, and to shine a light on these dark places. I don't mean to be glib when we talk about these things, but I've never known anyone to take their life in front of other people,
Yeah.
right? They always do it on their hidden by themselves. How many stories have you heard of people that were found in their apartment, in a bathroom, on the side of a road?
Hmm.
And that doesn't baffle me. That makes sense because I've been there. I was by myself. And if I did it, I would have done it by myself. So as we kind of search out exactly what's going on with people who are, down bad and down low enough to even want to start to consider something like this, we have to understand what we might be able to offer as hope for them. But one of the issues that I have struggled to accept is that, a prerequisite for change is a desire to change.
Yep.
You cannot help everybody. Not everybody desires to change.
Yeah.
And so in so many ways, it's not our water to carry. But in other ways, I wonder does that completely absolve us from effort, though, for someone who's hurting? I don't think that's the case.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point. I think you're 100% right on that. Like, you can even look at that with friends and family, with health, for example. And as you start personally, like moving towards, diet and exercise, trying to eat the right things and work out and take care of yourself, you want that for others that you're close to because you've seen the results and what it's done for you, and how it's changed your life. But like you said, the prerequisite for change is a desire to change. And a lot of times, those people that you share that with may not want that.
Yeah, you know what? Peterson put it the best. He goes, those who have suffered and want to share their story, who have, actually recovered, do not do so from some platform of moral authority.
Mm-hmm.
They do it because they do not want you to burn like they did. And that's my heart. I suffered to the point of wanting to take my own damn life. And I'm compassionate towards people that feel that way, so I do not want them to suffer. But I don't think it's as simple as if someone's drowning for us to say, well, I'm not a great swimmer, so good luck.
Yeah.
So I think maybe that's what we're here to talk about today a little bit,
Yeah.
especially through the holidays, right? With this audio exclusive today is for those who are suffering through the holidays.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say that I have been told, Gabor Mate says this, that sobriety is not the absence of alcohol or substance, but the presence of connection.
Mm.
And we're made for connection.
Yeah.
There's no denying that. For those who want to help those who are hurting right now, and for those who are hurting, I think it's okay to look for that connection through the holiday. So that may be in the form of, hey, there's a party. Would you like to attend?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to go on a walk with me? Do you want to go to the movies? Would you like to go to the gym? Come over and let me cook for you. So maybe that's something that someone might offer up to someone who is hurting. But my challenge is to the person who is hurting is to accept that, because your very first thought is going to be, nah, I'm not good enough. I'm hurting too bad. I'm allergic to having company right now. I don't even want to look in a mirror. I mean, I've been there.
Yeah.
And isolation is a bitch. It's the devil's playground. So I think the first step forward in turning the corner, at least even for a little bit, if you are the one who's hurting, if you are the one who's suffering, is to accept that invitation and do something different. You got to remember that nothing changes if nothing changes. And if you're not willing to do something different, you're not going to change.
Yeah.
But you'll be surprised, maybe that friend from work or your mother-in-law who you've said that you've hated all of these years, maybe that's exactly what you need, is to get back out into society. So put yourself together, if only for a night. Take that shower, put on some nice clothes, go out.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. And just from looking back at the interview with Travis, we call him Trav here, but to everyone else, it's Travis. But his interview and then the one with you, I think a common theme that I've noticed, and I think we've gotten a lot of feedback on as well, is the encouragement that you both received through y'all's struggles. And so I'm glad you hit on that, because I think it's important that that's something that's shared. Hey, if you know someone struggling, or even if you don't, during this time of the holidays, reach out. Like you said, invite them to something. And then on the other side, if you're the person getting reached out to, accept that. Because based on just the little bit of data that we've gathered, that was one of the driving factors that helped you get through that. So I think that that's really cool to hit on, because I really do think that that's something that's really important. And one of the things that we get asked a lot, I've seen several people ask this, is how do you love someone through their addiction or through their suffering? And you and I have kind of talked about this one-on-one where, you've heard people, say, tell them that you love them, make sure that they know that you love them.
Yeah.
But that doesn't work. So for the people that do know somebody that's struggling or suffering and they do want to love them through that, what would you say is something that they can do other than kind of what we've already talked about, like inviting them over, like making them a meal, taking them out, whatever it is? What are some things that you would suggest for those people?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because so many people are left baffled. They don't know what to do. And so since they don't know what to do, they don't do anything. But that's not a solution.
Yeah, no, not at all.
Life and death is in the power of the tongue, and those who love it shall eat its fruit. Never underestimate the power of an encouraging word, timely placed. I can't tell you how many times Travis has said the right thing at the right time. And I think that he would say the same thing about me. It does require vulnerability. But here's something. Try this on for size. Tell someone that you love, that you know is hurting, that they're better than that. That's it. Remind them. Speak life into them and say, hey, you're better than that. Don't condemn what they've been going through. Don't quote some Bible verse in some self-righteous manner. It's, they don't need to hear that. The same way someone who's overweight doesn't need to jump on a damn scale. They know they're fat. These people that are hurting know that they're hurting. They know that what they're up against is facing an inferior target, but they cannot seem to turn around. The very last thing they need is for you to quote some Bible verse. You know, I'm reminded of a story. This is so powerful. I actually talked to a gentleman today about it. You remember when Lazarus died?
Uh-huh.
What is the very first thing that Jesus did?
Well, I got to remember now. You're throwing this at me. The very first thing
He wept.
he wept, right? Yeah.
The very first thing that Jesus did was weep with Mary and Martha, right? He didn't say, well, Psalm 57 says the Lord is near to the brokenhearted, you know?
Yeah. No, he wept.
And
You're
Psalm
right.
23 says, well, and that's not Psalm 57. I think
Right.
maybe that's Psalm 27. I don't know. But Psalm 23, look, Mary and Martha, I just want to remind you that as you walk through the valley of the shadow of death, the Lord is here and with you. Look,
Cast your
I'm
burdens.
there is a time and place for scripture,
Mhm.
and it never returns void. But I'm just saying that if Jesus were the model for this, he empathized with them.
Yeah.
He wept. And keep in mind that this is the same man that knew he was going to raise Lazarus from the dead. But prior to doing that, he embraced their suffering and empathized with them.
Yeah.
And there's, that's called tactical empathy that really draws you near to someone. So I really think that that's what this is sometimes you just need to sit down in the ashes with these people. And it's okay not to even talk about anything, but just to create that connection and that nearness. And maybe that nearness is just being shoulder to shoulder with someone who's hurting.
Mm-hmm.
It's really that simple.
Yeah. No. And I won't get into too many details on this, but I mean, that's something that a story that you're familiar with, someone that we know that passed. So, and not from suicide, from, a health problem. But that's something that, my wife and I have learned through all this, and she's great about that. She is so much more empathetic than I am. And I wish I was as empathetic as she is, because she's very good at that and being able to just sit with people where they're at and hold that space, not necessarily say anything, because you're right. Like, in those moments, they don't need a Bible verse. They don't need a quote. They don't need to know what it is that'll help them get through it. Like, they know all of these things. And what they need is someone to sit there with them and be like, hey, I know you're hurting. I'm here with you. I'm empathizing with you. I may not know what you're going through, but I'm going to sit here with you.
Yeah, I'm in your corner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, there's power in presence.
Mm-hmm.
There's power in presence. Now, what does that require of the one who's suffering? To accept that someone wants to sit there with you.
Yeah.
Again, like, the prerequisite for change is a desire to change. And no one's asking you to wake up tomorrow and not be suicidal. No one's asking you to wake up tomorrow and not put the damn needle in your arm or powders up your nose. They're just asking you tonight or today, can they sit by you? And sometimes that's all it takes. I think that the holidays are obviously here to be celebrated. We think of family and friends and all of our loved ones between Thanksgiving, Christmas and New Year's, how many times we get together. And I just recognize that it seems like the thief is very much here to kill, steal, and destroy.
Mm-hmm.
Those times, maybe more than any of the other months. I talk to people all of the time and they're like, yeah, man, the family dinner was shit. Mom was fighting with so-and-so and dad was fighting with so-and-so. And then you hear of other families, I'm not going to go. And it's like, oh, wow, you're clearly still nurturing that resentment.
Mm-hmm.
Bitterness corrodes the container it's carried in. So maybe that's what it is, for those that don't want to get out and be near their loved ones. Well, then go ahead and hang on to that bitterness and see how that serves you.
Yeah.
It breaks my heart, and it's not easy. It's not easy to want to be vulnerable because in so many ways, avoiding that vulnerability makes you think that you're powerful. But see, that's what makes you weak.
Mm-hmm.
And the only weakness that we have is avoiding those things that continue to come to light that need to be dealt with. So these feelings and these fears, they come up because they're meant to be dealt with, not avoided.
Yeah.
And so I think, if you want a fresh perspective on things when it comes around the holidays, how come every single year you dread going to your fill in the blanks house or spending time with fill in the blank? In fact, I could say this right now, and if anybody's listening, they know that person, that place, or that thing that gets them fired up. I could just say fill in the blank, person, place, or thing, and these people will feel that because they're hanging on to that. So I would offer that this Christmas season, why don't you try something different and stop avoiding that and recognize that it's exposing itself so that it can be confronted, it can be integrated. You could work through whatever forgiveness or unforgiveness is there and release yourself from that. Don't bring that into the new year.
No, that's great. And I was pulling up a quote because you just said this. And it's funny that you said that because I just saw this quote the other day. And it says that true strength is not measured by what you hold on to, but what you're willing to let go of.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's extremely powerful. And I mean, that's exactly what you just said. So, that being said, you've said it a couple times. And for those who are suffering, right, you've said a couple times, hey, why don't you try something different this holiday season and then start your new year off different than what you've always done? What are some, I guess, practical ways that can be accomplished?
Yeah, I mean, it's easier said than done, but just go down to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? Food, shelter, and water. Hopefully you have a place to sleep, you have food, and you have water. Start with that. Try to get some sleep, try to hydrate, try to eat well. Get out in the sun, take a walk. Maybe go to the gym. Who cares if you don't know what to do? Just go move some weight, get your blood flowing. That puts you in a position to start behaving in a way that enables you to think better. Because the reality is sometimes you get stuck in your thoughts and you think that you're going to think your way out of it. It doesn't happen that way. The renewal of the mind is an action that takes more than just sitting there and thinking about it. You got to get out. Motion is a solution to a lot of this.
I like that.
Right? What is it? An object in motion tends to stay in motion.
Yeah, that's Newton's, was that the third law?
Yeah, well, it's one of the laws. I don't know.
It's been too long. I don't remember.
My teacher would be upset that I cannot quote that perfectly. But yeah, an object in motion tends to stay in motion. Keep moving.
Yeah.
I remember when I was suffering, there was this song by 9 Inch Nails.
Oh, yeah.
And I love 9 Inch Nails. I love Trent Reznor. And it says, every day is exactly the same. I think that was the name of the song. And I think like the first verse was something like, I can see the future because I can tell you how this is going to end. And I could see the future because I could tell you how this is going to end. And the reason why I knew that is because I was doing the same damn thing every day and nothing was changing. Now, it's not that I necessarily expected different outcomes. It's just that I knew subconsciously that nothing was going to change. So, my encouragement, my call to action for those who are hurting or those who want to help the hurting, is try something different.
Yeah.
Write a letter to your loved one. Write a letter to your loved one and burn it. Don't even give it to them,
Mm.
or give it to them. If it's sincere, if it's authentic.
Yeah.
Or if you're someone that is suffering, write a letter to your future self. Write a letter to someone that you want to become. And then pray over it.
Yeah. That's good.
You want to set the bar kind of low too, right?
Right.
No one's asking, like I said, I've only known one or two different people to just stop doing drugs the next day. And it was an act of God.
Well, yeah, because
as to why it happened.
You're deep in the addiction, and it's when it comes to addiction and what all goes with that. Like, it's not just an action, but there's a chemical. I don't know if it's a reaction or whatever, but there's stuff that goes on in your brain.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a mental obsession. It's a spiritual malady.
Yeah.
And you didn't necessarily get that way overnight. And I think maybe for those who are, who are baffled by those who are addicts, for example, telling an addict to stop doing drugs is like telling someone with cancer, stop having cancer.
Yeah.
Because it is a disease. And we're not here to say it's a disease as some sort of excuse to continue to do it. Like, cancer is a disease, but you don't just say, well, I have cancer. You walk through specific treatment to get rid of it. Addiction and alcoholism and maybe even suicide are no different.
Right.
So it's not necessarily that you wake up the next day and you're not doing coke or jamming needles in your arm or drinking a fifth of vodka, but maybe you wake up and you just take a shower and put on a nice set of clothes, and maybe you make your bed. Maybe you read one page. Maybe you journal for 10 minutes.
Yeah.
You put a few of those days together and you'll be surprised to see what happens. But my point is this: expecting a different outcome but doing the same things will drive you even more insane than you already are.
No, that's great. That's a really good place to kind of end right here, is that's really it. Like, do something different, be encouraging, and if you're on the other side of it, same thing, do something different, be willing to accept the encouragement or accept the invitation. I do want to end on one thing though. If people want to reach out to us, whether it's they have questions or whether it's they're suffering and they don't know where else to go, but they've heard, your story, they've heard Trav's story, they've seen the podcast, they've seen, some of our content. How can they reach out to us?
Yeah, I think, the best way to reach out to us is message us on our Instagram.
Yeah.
Or send us an email.
Yep.
Which is on our Instagram as well.
Yeah, I think it's askmike@soberwin.com.
Yeah.
But it's on the Instagram. You're
right. askmike@soberwin.com, or message us. And I think the message I want to put out is that we just care. We're here to help them and to incite hope. It's a journey, but we're willing to go on it with them.
Yeah.
We'll march through that with you. I think it's important that people know that we're not some sort of recovery house or anything like that. It's quite the organic model or approach that we're taking, but we're just stepping forward into the light to the degree that we can, hoping that we will help people. And I can tell you right now that I've probably received over 100 messages, either through Facebook or Instagram, of people with similar stories. So I know that we're moving the needle in the right direction. And I really hope that there comes a time to where our audience grows, our messages grow, and they start to help people well beyond just the container or the society the sub-society that we operate in. But if we only ever save one life, then that's enough too.
Yeah. Like we said, you can reach out via DM on Instagram or email. The other thing that we'd ask is share the show. If you know someone who's suffering, or if you're not one of the people who's suffering, but you have people in your life that are suffering, follow us on Instagram. We're on Instagram and YouTube. You can follow there and share the show, because ultimately we want to get this out there. So
Share the show, share the stories,
Yeah.
like and comment. I get that we're soliciting this a little bit, but that's kind of what it takes, and it's for the right purpose here. The motives are to help people that are hurting. That's it.
Yeah.
And so, like, if maybe you don't necessarily want to talk to the addict that is your son or your daughter or your aunt or uncle or mother or father, because you don't know how, well, you can help us still by liking, sharing, commenting, following what we're putting out, the content we're putting out. So with that, Merry Christmas to everyone. Happy New Year. Want to remind everyone, if you have a breath, you have a chance. There is hope and there is help. God bless.